Lots of education issues on the agenda this week.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Tomorrow night we'll have the Ed Commissioner in here. Tonight we have my informal advisor on education, Erika Sanzi, who writes the blog Good School Hunting, and who's written two sharp pieces in the last week or so. One on the testing that has just hit the public domain, and second, the Friday night massacre that occurred as predicted by those who are paying attention in South Kingstown. It's a story that I think has statewide implications, so we'll talk about both tonight. Welcome in. Thanks for being on board. Giants eked one out last night. Perfect. Of course, Kev's bored with the Patriots wins. It's now every week. Same old routine. We'll talk about PC and URI in our final segment, although, frankly, there wasn't much to talk about. Let's lead with the headline that, of course, the nation is talking about, understandably, and for all the right reasons. President Bush will be laid to rest on Thursday. He will be lying in state until Wednesday in Washington, and then will be brought to Texas on Thursday. And he'll be laid to rest with his wife. They are, I think, a source of pride for the country. You know, there's this notion that he was a wimpy dude. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that was ever the case. He made a lot of tough decisions, and I think rightly so. People are talking about him being the most successful one-term president in the nation's history. You know, it really is a conversation that we ought to talk about. He had to turn back on no new taxes because the numbers didn't add up. Even Republicans in the background are going, you know, the numbers don't add up. And so he had to pivot. And one could say he went back on his word. Another could say that he did another evaluation and laid himself out there and fell on the sword. Have you noticed since then that there isn't much reevaluation in politics anymore? That there really isn't in governing and leading? And by the way, politics and governing and leading are very different things. We now have polarization, the likes of which we've never seen in this country's history, and we don't have a lot of movement. We don't have a lot of situational analysis. Just think about that. He may be the last president that ever offered any, at least as boldly and as clearly and as damagingly to his career as he did. We'll have more conversation on this as we go along over the course of the week. Godspeed, right? Coming home, this is a tricky situation. The headline here, Mayor Lorza says no to the High Point Tower, also known as the Fane Tower, because he's the developer. And he said this to Eyewitness News.
For something that's going to reshape our skyline and our streetscape, you know, I got to make sure that it works for the city of Providence, and I wasn't given those assurances. So, as I told him I would do, I vetoed the measure.
I have, you know, again, this is one of those. Everybody goes into their dugouts and chooses their side of the field here. I think that there's some middle weird ground. This tower is strange. It's strange. It's this like toothpick that's going to stand up and be higher than everything in the city, down toward 195, away from the cityscape. We still have the Superman building that's decaying and unlit. The builders, the construction types, the politicians who support them and who are paid for by them are outraged. The Senate president now thinks he wants to take the power of the 195 control away from the city over all of this. I'm not saying the building's a bad idea. I'm not saying that the builders and the laborers aren't, you know, well argued when they say that we need development. But the neighbors kind of look at it and say, I'm always wary of not in my backyard, too, because that's never a healthy basis for an argument. But can we all agree that the whole thing is off-putting a little bit? What's required now is leadership, not just Lorza saying he didn't do enough to help me. Now he's got to step in and see if he can drive home a solution. I don't know. This is going to be, I think, another one of those dropped balls because nobody can find a place for consensus. All right, We'll see. Here's the headline that should have everybody talking. Oh boy. Massachusetts has a 15 to 20 point lead on Rhode Islanders. We're all supposed to say, well, yeah, that's the way it goes. And here's the headline that Erika put out, Good School Hunting. This is a must read on her blog. Just Google Good School Hunting. What is your executive summary on this? Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
My executive summary is that what we already knew to be true is now something we really have to stop pretending isn't true. We knew that we lagged behind Massachusetts. We decided to finally be able to make an apples-to-apples comparison. We have that information.
Good credit to the leadership to finally lay down the same template, correct?
Yes. And it's like we ripped off the Band-Aid. The numbers are bad. I think most of us knew that was going to happen. And then the question now is, do we follow Massachusetts' lead, which was, you know, commit to a strategy and a vision 20 years ago and stick to it, or do we again blink? And I'm hopeful that we do not choose to blink.
The former commissioner, Deb Gist, was trying. She was trying standards and this and that, and it's almost too complicated to remember, but all in all, she was trying. NEA hated her. You know, ran her out of Dodge, and she blinked. She peeled back some of the standards because she felt like she couldn't get anywhere with the culture around here. Ken Wagner comes in. His resume is terrific. His disposition is wonderful. I think his acumen is very high level. His way of going about business, I think, is pretty good. But he said something last week that drove me crazy. He said, listen, it's not that the Massachusetts kids are smarter. It's just that they got a better start. No, guess what? The real word is they're not more capable. The truth is, Massachusetts kids are 15 to 20 points smarter. Rhode Island kids are 15 to 20 points less smart. Oh gosh, ready for politically incorrect? Dumber. Now, that doesn't make anybody feel good.
Right.
And maybe I'm a shock jock. You'll hear about that later. But you know what's missing for me? Then you talk. Anger. There's no anger.
I have plenty.
Okay.
But I have, I like you like to call me a voice in the wilderness. You're right.
Nobody's angry.
They're not angry enough because they don't realize the implications of an uneducated populace. They're not able to really think, wow, if they can't read and write, or they can't do math, or they don't have skills, then they can't find a job, they can't have a home, they can't sustain a family, they're more likely to drop out, they're more likely to fall into crime, we're more likely to pay for them on the back end.
The mover-shaker community in this state enjoys status quo because all their kids get enough to do enough. And you know what's funny about this test? Barrington to Central Falls, okay. Have your fun. But Barrington to Long Meadow, Mass, you just get your tail kicked in. East Greenwich to an equivalent socioeconomic community, Burb in Mass, tail kicked in.
Not even close.
Now, even the aloof.
But we knew that. I mean, maybe people were pretending we did. We sort of knew.
We knew it, but we didn't want to admit it. And the comparisons were intra-Rhode Island versus
But why would anyone want? Why would you do intra comparisons when you're 44th in the state for? I'm sorry, 44th in the state in the country for 4th grade math, and you're 46th in the country. Like, why would you want to be comparing yourself to yourself? You stink. So I think this
politically incorrect.
Well, I think that because I think you can't make change, transformative change, until you're brutally honest about where you are.
I agree. So when we come back, we'll give you more background and talk about what we should do next. So in case you missed it,
stark results from the latest round of standardized testing.
The results are not surprising. Anyone who's been looking at the data over the years.
The first RICAS exam shows Rhode Island students scored 17 points lower than Massachusetts on English language arts and 20 percentage points lower on math. If Rhode Island was a district within Massachusetts, it would be in the bottom 10%.
I think these results say wherever you are right now, if you're happy with your school, if you're not happy with your school, there is clear and convincing evidence that we can and we must get better.
Rhode Island's Education Commissioner Ken Wagner says schools can improve scores by investing in early learning, ongoing professional development for teachers, and by making sure school stays relevant to kids. As for why the test results arrived later than expected and after the election, Wagner blames technical difficulties, not politics.
Even if you assume that there was some sort of effort to contain results, I've been saying the results for the past 3 years. We had a lot of technical issues that we had to work through in the first year of this new test.
All right, I'm glad he led the new testing formula, correct? I mean, the commissioner had much to do. He's responsible for
the change
to
this
change.
test, yes.
Yes, so he's coming tomorrow, and we'll talk about that. What do we do?
Well, we remind...
As a former teacher, school committee member, in case you're wondering, Good School Hunting is Erika's blog, but I mean, it's just not just some parent. Not that parents shouldn't have more seats at the table, because a lot of parents have a lot of common sense about this stuff. What does he do now? What does he say we need to do, and who has to fall into line and agree? Or what kind of new consensus or battle is going to ensue? What happens now?
I think he reminds people that they were all on board when this decision was made. So I haven't heard it yet, but if people kind of start saying, well, you know, poking holes in the test, finding excuses, talking about maybe we should pivot yet again, every single stakeholder was on board with this decision publicly, and they really presented a united front. And now it's a year and a half later, and they need to stay the course. That's what I think they need to do.
There's not much wiggle room because those stakeholders are all together in this, right?
Well,
but the solutions are...
And the blame, well, the blame game is a waste of time because it doesn't lie in any one place.
Right.
So just today I saw something come across my Facebook feed, and it was about how the parents are the problem. It's only the parents. Ridiculous.
Who wrote that?
I don't know.
Why are you reading Facebook?
Oh, good question. My husband asks the same thing.
Why?
I don't know.
Stop.
Actually, yes, I do know.
Why?
Because I found the photo and then the video of the service dog that was laying beside the casket of former President Bush, and it was like, it totally touched my heart. So I was looking at it, sharing it, and then I did a quick scroll, and then, you know, the dumb things appear. But the point is, if you just attack teachers, you're missing, that's not it. If you just attack leadership, that's not it. If you just attack, and if you blame kids, I mean, it's like we have a problem that takes a solution where we all do better and work harder.
Okay. What is it?
I think that we have to...
Just write the script from Mass?
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't basically do that. It's already done.
It's all sorts of things in Massachusetts is done that we don't have to rethink.
Why are we reinventing the wheel? Now, they do have a high school exam requirement that we have not been able to get past. In fact, they do an MCAS in 10th grade, and you have to pass it to graduate.
Why are we only doing the RICAS in 3rd and 8th grade? Why are we doing the SATs as a, what is that? That's
definitely a better question for the commissioner. I mean, I know that it increases, it levels the playing field in terms of participation in PSAT and SAT. And it gets kids over that initial hurdle of going to college, you know, where the fee is waived and they don't have to have someone get them there on a Saturday. But it doesn't measure what you've learned in school.
Well, it's a different test.
Different kind of test. So, yeah, I wish that we would just sort of follow Massachusetts fully, but we're not there. And I don't know if there's an appetite for that. But I will say...
So what happens? What happens here? I can't wait to hear the commissioner's projection. If everyone was in on the decision to equalize the comparability between Mass and Rhode Island, between 3rd and 8th grade, then everyone's got to be in on a solution and not worry about blaming. See, I'm not blaming anybody. I just want everybody to admit we're dumb.
Well, that's not a nice thing to say.
Who cares?
I know, but
who cares?
Because I don't even think that's the right word. Ill-prepared. I mean, I don't think it's if children emerge into
And by the way,
world,
this is a politically correct thing. I got an email from the other day. Oh, nice job, Dan. You spent 2 hours on the radio using the word dumb. Do you know that's what people call disabled kids? And, well, you know what? That's outrageous that anybody would call a disabled kid dumb. I'm not going to mince words. There's a word that we don't use anymore for Down syndrome people, so don't use it. There's no. We're not as smart as the kids. When my daughter went to college with kids from Mass and New Jersey, she was not as smart as them on a whole bunch of things. She was dumber. Now, sorry. I'm not
disagreeing with you. I grew up in Mass.
She's at grad school. She is working her tail off. She's going to be a tremendous success, knock wood. She still struggles with statistics and math from the abuse she got
here we go.
in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Oh, what do you mean, here we go?
Well, I just know that this is a topic that gets you very
my
heated.
point is Rhode Island allowed this to happen?
Yes, they have.
Okay?
And they have. I live 5 minutes.
And by the way, I talked to my daughter. I said, by the way, honey, I said you were dumber on the radio. She's like, yeah, well, I am.
And I said it again on TV today.
But she's like, by the way, she's going to, if you met her, you wouldn't think she was dumb. Don't be insulted. Your kids, don't, this is a fact.
Well, here's the thing. If you're held to lower expectations, you know less. If you are presented less knowledge, you know less.
It makes me mad.
Well, it is.
It should make everyone mad. If everyone had a consensus that we needed a test, now everyone should be consensus that they're mad. And if they're mad, they won't blame. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm blaming everybody. Sorry, I didn't bring you on to
well,
use you
I've
as a
seen
foil.
this. No, I know, and I've seen. Well, I'm not going to support the math program that you thought was terrible. I thought it was terrible too. But okay, like for example, and you should bring this up with the commissioner too when you talk to him. But teacher preparation, for example, is something that needs to change.
Why?
And it is changing actually, because the overwhelming majority of teachers will tell you that they do not feel day one ready when they get their certificate when they graduate. They are not trained in the science of how kids learn to read. They're expected to teach kids to read, but they haven't been trained in how to teach kids to read. And they don't understand the science between teaching kids to read.
Whose fault is that?
Well, I would think that it's the ed school and it's the teacher prep program, and partly because you don't want to get in the weeds on this, but there's reading wars. Some people think that if you just stick a kid in a room with books, they'll just learn to read. Because they think that it's like learning to speak. Mm-hmm. And some kids will, but most kids won't. So they're moving, for example, from a semester practicum, student teaching, I think, to a full year teaching residency. That's a significant change. I think that's really great. So there's one place.
All right. A lot of questions for the commissioner on this. I have to pause because I have to get my guest's take on this debacle in South Kingstown next.
Duly elected to make decisions like this. In other communities, legal counsel changes at the town and school level regularly, and there's frankly not a big to-do about it. And so I understand that, you know, Bryant DeCruz and some other individuals have called into some shock jocks and really stirred this situation up, and there are folks that are very disappointed in the election results, and they're sort of combining that anger into making this into a bigger deal than it is. And so with that, I think we can move on.
Howard Stern.
Shock jock. When I heard that, I said, he is going to feel so cool.
I do. I feel great.
Nice confidence boost.
Yeah. It's amazing. I'm going to go on Sirius Radio and
if you criticize them, clearly you're just a shock jock who's just stirring the pot.
You know the culture. You've been a school committee member.
Yes.
You're a teacher. You know the both sides of the aisle.
Yes.
In South Kingstown, it's a long story made short. There's a school committee member. That's the chairman, Chairman Cantor right there, but Vice Chairman Sarah Markey is a high-ranking National Education Association executive who was up for appointment to the South Kingstown School Committee in 2017 when a vacancy occurred. The town council makes that appointment. The town council was worried about her position and checked the lawyer, her NEA position, checked the lawyer. The longtime 10-year lawyer for the school committee to offer an ethics projection, opinion, advisory as to whether she would be capable to do the job. 3 or 4 pages later, it came back that she pretty much can't move a muscle because she's so conflicted. Fast forward, 2018, she gets elected by the happy idiots in South Kingstown. Uh-oh. And then they fire the lawyer.
Unbelievable.
They fire the lawyer.
On a Friday night.
For no good reason.
On a Friday night.
With no public commentary.
Correct.
And I'm a shock jock to point that out.
It is.
This is. Go ahead.
It's just outrageous. I mean,
you have the floor for 2 minutes. You go.
Well, having been in teachers' unions myself in 2 states, having been on a school committee, this is like unconscionable, in my opinion. And I say that as a former educator, I say that as a mother, I say it as an education advocate. I mean, this is not. First of all, she enters the she enters the process unable to vote on anything of consequence.
Anything.
According to legal opinions, she also shouldn't be engaging in discussion on anything of consequence.
Anything.
But she already is doing that.
Yes.
Now,
she's violating ethics code left and right in plain view.
Now, here's the thing. I will say, she was duly elected.
By the happy idiots.
By the people in the community who I suspect most of them were not really paying attention,
right.
Didn't realize, or she was kind of presented as an educator who knows a lot about
right.
education.
And she's a teacher advocate, and too many parents are the happy idiots. By the way, if you're a Jackson Brown fan, you know what the term means. If you don't, check The Pretender. The modern parent is about the teachers because they're my second mommy, blah, 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 right? What a mess.
But here's the thing, you can...
And not that the teachers shouldn't be supported.
You can respect teachers and admire teachers and adore the ones that are great and be frustrated with the ones that are lousy. You can, and still think that a person an executive at the NEA should not be sitting on a school committee.
Wrong team. It's like having a member of the Jets in the Patriots huddle. There needs to be a friendly adversarial relationship there.
It's like having a spy. Like it's,
correct.
I mean, she's working on crafting union policy by day and then school department policy by night.
I only have 30 seconds. Why is it important past South Kingstown?
Because we knew before, or some of us knew, that this was a plan, that a national plan after the Supreme Court ruling went against unions in the Janus case was to begin trying to infiltrate elected school committees and town councils because they want more influence. So, okay, I mean, again, it's their job to try and protect their members, but we as parents and as taxpayers, you can't stand for this.
We'll see what happens. Thank you for your perspective. Good School Hunting is the must read. Stay tuned. Basketball thought next. So PC beats URI 59-50 at the dunk. There was so much adrenaline and excitement going in. By the time everyone left, it was kind of like, what was that? It's like a bad movie. You walk out and say, it was a rock fight, as sports folks would say. Which is why I say the following. Congratulations to PC. URI's got some work to do, no doubt. So does PC. But we should play this twice a year. One early, one late. And it'll be a different story. And that's all I have to say about that. We'll see you tomorrow. The Ed Commissioner will be in. And, of course, on the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO. Good night.